So at this point in the unit, you should have spent some time completing the assigned readings and watching that video of what life was like inside the annex. This can give you a pretty good idea of what Anne's surroundings were inside the annex. But I did get some questions about what the house looked like from the outside. So I did want to share this picture with you. As you can see, this picture is an image of what the Anne Frank house looked like from outside. Here in the center you can see the house that's highlighted in blue. This is the home where Anne Frank was hiding with the secret annex. So the secret annex would be in the top floors here with no windows in the front, so that obviously no one would know they were hiding here, and the business would be down below on the bottom. I also wanted to show you a picture of Anne herself. This is the most famous picture of Anne Frank. This is the one that's located right on page 557 of your textbook. So if you want to get a better glimpse of it, you can look there. We don't have any pictures of the Frank family while they were in hiding. Obviously, cameras and selfies weren't quite as popular as they are today. So we don't have any good image. This is a little bit older image of Anne that was taken, I think, about 2 years when she was 12 years old before she was in hiding. And here is a picture of Peter. So in our readings this unit, we learn a lot about Peter. You can see a better image of Peter right in your book. It's going to be right across from the picture of Ange on page 557. And in this unit, we're going to learn a lot about the relationship between Anne and Peter. So today we're going to begin topic 2, which is love and the secret annex. So as we know, Anne's diary begins when she's 13 years old and she's in the annex. And she enjoys doing many of the same things you like to do, listening to music, watching movies, and spending time with friends. And another thing that might interest a 13-year-old is certainly that idea of romance. Anne definitely had crushes on movie stars, just like many of you might have crushes on musicians, One Direction members, or whatever type of music that you might listen to. Well, during her time in the annex, Anne becomes in a romantic relationship with Peter, which is the housemate that she shares the story with. Now, as you'll see in this week's readings, in the beginning of the story, Anne ignores Peter. Right? He's 2 years older than her. She thinks he's a little bizarre, kind of weird, really quiet, and, annoying too. This is one of those type of experiences where Anne was stuck in this attic with somebody and he was driving her nuts. So she really just ignores him, and they kind of just live parallel lives side by side without much interaction as months and months go by. Now, as Anne begins to feel more lonely and more isolated and, kind of start to wonder, am I ever going to get out of this annex? She starts to change her feelings, and we can see that through this week's reading. We can see how she begins to soften, and she also begins to find a little bit of that hopelessness and thinking, am I ever going to get out? Maybe I should just make the best of it. In the beginning of the diary, Anne sort of has this short-term idea where she thinks this is going to be a very short-term experience for her, and so she just wants to get in, get her time, and get out. And then as the diary develops, we see through this reading that Anne is starting to soften to the idea that she doesn't know, and this could be her life for an undetermined amount of time. So now she sort of decides to make the best of it, and in doing so, she develops a relationship with Peter. So through the 2 years in the annex, Peter and Anne develop quite the romance. Anne actually gets her first kiss in the annex from Peter, and they really develop into a courtship or a dating where they, go about their regular lives during the day, and then at night they have, a date where Anne goes to Peter's family side of the house, or Peter comes to Anne's family side of the house, and they spend time reading together and talking and many of the things that a 13-year-old might do today. So I want you to take a look at the excerpt that is located on page 562 of your book, and this excerpt is from May 19th of 1944, and it's just as a little example of some of the readings that show strong relationship between Anne and Peter. So take a look and read along with me. Everything's going fine between Peter and me. The poor boy has an even greater need for tenderness than I do. He still blushes every evening when he gets his goodnight kiss and begs for another one. Am I merely a better substitute for Boche? I don't mind. He's so happy just knowing somebody loves him. After my laborious conquest, I've distanced myself a little from the situation, but you mustn't think my love has cooled. Peter's a sweetheart, but I've slammed the door to my inner self. If he wants to force the lock again, he'll have to use a harder crowbar. So as we can see in that reading, Anne's really having a lot of internal struggle with this relationship with Peter. We see that she asks, am I merely a better substitute for Bosch? Which is talking about one of Peter's earlier relationships and someone that he had a crush on previously. So she's definitely experiencing some jealousy there. She's also saying how even though her love hasn't cooled, right, she's still very much in love with him, she's kind of playing hard to get. She's saying, he's a sweetheart, but I've slammed the door to my inner self, right? I'm sort of going to play hard to get, lock myself up. So even though Anne and Peter were in this very uncomfortable, tense, and conflicting living space during this time, they're still experiencing so many of the same things that are normal for a teenager during this time. So this reading really gives us a good glimpse into how Anne has come to make the best life she can out of her time in the Annex. And we can see this right through the relationship of Anne and Peter. I'm going to ask that you go on and take a look at the next reading, and then after that we'll take a look at some of the discussion questions and the assignments that we talked about earlier on in the unit. Take a look at topic 3, the end of Anne's story, and we'll pick up there.